agree that AI in writing and the creative industries as a whole is a very divisive topic.
But let me ask you a question. If an author uses AI to help brainstorm ideas, outline chapters and check grammar, but writes every word of the final manuscript themselves, is that book AI written?
Once you start asking questions like that, the whole AI versus human writing debate becomes a lot more complicated. The reality is that AI use in writing isn't a simple yes or no issue. There is a whole spectrum of ways that it can be used with all the tools available.
And misused. Later in the video, I'll explain how using AI too early in your writing journey can prevent you from developing your own voice.
I can always pick AI writing because of the M dashes.
No, you can't. That is totally misunderstanding, right? Authors do actually use M dashes, right? And guess who the AIs were trained on? Authors' books.
Well,
our books, my books. I've been using M dashes
I ain't
for
a writer.
10
I don't know
years.
how to use them.
Exactly.
If I get an email full of M dashes from someone who's not a writer, I know it's AI.
Well, that's different. You know, I mean, I don't put M dashes in my emails.
There you go. Hi, I'm Rose Newland, the book designer at Alkira Publishing.
Hi, I'm Talia Newland, the managing editor at Alkira Publishing.
We all know there are issues with AI and that there's a level of use and kinds of use that are not good. But in this video, we're narrowing it down specifically to AI usage in writing and leaving out the environmental impacts from the equation, though it pains me to do so.
Well, we can't talk about everything.
No, this video would be hours long.
Yeah, and AI is a reality we have to grapple with. But the thing is, in writing, the conversation around AI often becomes very emotional.
Exhibit A.
So people quickly take hardline positions like AI is destroying writing or AI will replace writers.
But most people are discussing this in very simplified terms. The phrase AI written is often used as if it's a simple yes or no category, but in reality there are many different ways AI can be used to assist authors with their process. So can you walk us through some of these different ways?
Yeah, well, I have played around with AI as a curiosity thing, you know, and to see whether I was going to lose my job as an editor. But basically it can occur at many levels, right? There's a very small use, things like spell check, grammar check, brainstorming titles, or generating character names. These are common, or using it as a mirror just to help you sort out your ideas, get them in some sort of order. Then there's a moderate use, which would be outlining chapters or outlining a whole book, suggesting structures, summarising research, turning a spoken word transcript into a blog post, maybe turning a video transcript into a blog post or vice versa, or even maybe writing a paragraph. And then the heavier use would be writing whole chapters or writing drafts or using it to line edit the words. That's a heavy use of it. And then the extreme use would be having AI write an entire book. Most authors who experiment with AI will end up somewhere in the middle of that spectrum, I expect.
So really, when someone says that a book is AI written, the question is actually how much AI was used in that determination of whether it's a yes or no. So what makes someone the author of a book?
Yeah, well, you might think that the answer to that is simple, right? But there's an established system in the publishing world where a book is published under someone's name, but they haven't actually written it, right? They haven't written the book themselves. Those writers are called ghost writers because they are not acknowledged, right? So a ghost writer will write an entire book and they might not have their name anywhere on the book.
Ghostwritten by ChatGPT.
The credited author may write absolutely none of it, or they might have written an outline or whatever, but the public still considers whoever's name's on the book as the author, even though that author hasn't actually written a word of it. Right? So that's ghostwriting. Then you have collaborations. So for instance, James Patterson books are collaborations with other authors. He usually lists their name alongside his or below, say a featuring or a with or simply as a co-author. And evidently he provides a detailed 50 to 80 page outlines while the co-author writes the drafts. And then I imagine that he goes through it. But his books are generally considered his books, right? Even though he doesn't write the actual words. Yeah, but he gives the plan and he probably does the edit at the end. J.N. Chaney does the same, right? But it's always co-authors, right? But it's his ideas as far as I know. So publishing already has systems where the credited author or the main author isn't the person who wrote every word, right? So where exactly do we draw the line in saying who is the author of a work?
But the AI doesn't produce ideas by itself, though. The AI responds to prompts and directions. So, like what you're saying, the author's still providing the concept and directing the process and evaluating the results, hopefully. The author has to have some knowledge of writing craft in order to be able to do this, to provide those prompts.
Yeah, to do it effectively. Yeah. So the quality of what AI produces depends heavily on the knowledge and judgment of the person using it. So here's an example from my experience, right? I tested AI writing tools like writing suggestions like Pro Writing Aid, writing marketing material, ads, book descriptions, video titles and descriptions, keywords, that kind of thing. I also tested structural appraisals, and I looked into what you would actually have to know and do to write a full novel using AI. I didn't write the novel, right? I did a sample test, right, of the concept, so I would know what I was talking about. Right? So what I noticed was that some suggestions were really flawed, right? They didn't relate to the author's style or intention, and this is in Pro Writing Aid. They had no way for you to program in that understanding that they would need in order to make suggestions that were actually stylistically appropriate. You could supposedly give an AI that understanding, but you'd need to be able to know how to do that, right? And that's an advanced prompting tool, and it also requires you to have a deep understanding of your own work. And honestly, only editors have that knowledge. Authors don't know that about their own work. It's a different way of thinking.
Sounds like someone who usually writes with a ghostwriter would be well suited to giving detail. James Patterson and ChatGPT. I don't know.
People trust these things. That's the danger, right? They think all of those suggestions are great. Now, if you go through and you accept all those suggestions, your book's going to be a mess. And honestly, I do think that I have seen one of those books because it came to me and the woman said, "Oh, I've had it edited and all of this," and I just looked at it and it was a mess. It was such a mess. And of course, she was very upset when I said it actually is going to need to be edited, and there's quite a lot of work to do on it because she thought that the AI done a good job. And that's the thing. Authors, especially new authors, they don't.
You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, and they don't recognise these stylistic inconsistencies. And if you don't have the self-confidence in yourself as a writer, you're in real danger of getting misdirected by these tools, right? Yeah. So I discovered that AI can be quite helpful in structuring non-fiction, but I would not advise it for fiction. So here's an example. When I went through this process of what you would be doing to write a novel with the AI, it came out with this basic sort of structure. It was like, oh, okay. And then I went, okay, I've got to add in now some more depth and some more characters and some more character arcs and so on and so forth. And the more I added in, the worse it got, until the final suggestion that I had, it had the inciting incident in the middle of the book, right? And it was like,
how to confuse an AI.
I did not tell you to put that in the middle of the book. It's like, it was so boring. I couldn't believe it. I went, my God, this is so bad, And that's the thing. If you trusted the AI, if you went, oh, the AI it'll do a good job. So you really need to have that knowledge of your writing craft before you can use it effectively. And once you've got that knowledge of the writing craft, what do you want to use it for anyway?
So we're going to look at 3 major risks for authors and some ways AI might be helpful without compromising your creative ownership.
So the first risk is to your author's voice. Okay, so AI does tend towards generic language patterns. Even if you try to program it for your style and voice, it does still tend towards generic language patterns. And I have done this, and I have looked very carefully at the results. And with an editor's eye, I can see the difference. So that is true. AI writing often sounds bland, particularly if you haven't trained it on your style at all. Really very, very bland. It resembles those generic blog post content that businesses put out. And I mean, now they are all AI written, those, let's face it. And so they
all sound the same.
All sound the same, that's right. And I think AI is quite good at structuring them, but the actual writing, it just,
Samey.
So developing your author's voice is really important. It's what makes an author's work distinct, and it takes a while for you to realise what your voice actually is, right? And voice is not just your style, it's how you view the world, it's the things that you're concerned about, right? And the AI doesn't pick that up. You would have to tell them, and even then it would come in with this sort of informative kind of angle. You know, I mean, for fiction in particular, they can sound really poetic, but often if you drill down, it's like, what does that actually mean? If you're a developing writer, right, and you rely on AI to generate the actual words, you're never going to develop your own voice. And that's a real tragedy.
Yeah. What's another danger?
Okay, I would say subtle distortion of ideas. AI may omit unusual perspectives, right? It'll simplify complex ideas, flatten originality. Okay, so in my experience, AI very subtly diminishes or alters your ideas. It leaves out unusual points. I found this when I used AI to transcribe something that I spoke into a recording system. So I would write a blog post by speaking it into, right? And then I would get the transcript and then give it to the AI to structure it into a blog post, right? Then I read this and I go, hang on a minute. The main point of what I was saying, which was different to what anyone else had said on this topic, was simply left out. Because AI works on pattern recognition, and that pattern is not there anywhere else. It's a new idea, right? I'm just, new ideas.
No such thing as new ideas.
So I put things together in a different way. I'm not saying nobody else had that idea, but it's not mainstream thinking, right? So the AI just doesn't know what to do with it. It doesn't recognise it as a valid pattern. Now, I saw it when it was really obvious. Like, I just had this really obvious thing. It was like, hang on a minute, where's that point? And it was just not in it.
Yeah.
So I gave it directions again to include it. It still didn't include it.
It went, I don't understand
It could not, it just couldn't put it in because it didn't fit.
Cannot compute.
Yeah, it didn't fit the patterns. So that's on a really gross level, but it does that on a subtle level and you simply won't notice.
Especially across a whole book, you wouldn't necessarily notice.
Yeah, and I think the word flattens is good. It sort of
simplifies complex ideas.
Yeah.
Some people say, oh, I just use it for research. But that's the third risk, is that the research cannot be reliable all the time. So AI summaries can contain errors, they can mix facts with fiction, they can also generate false information.
Absolutely.
They can be useful for a quick summary, but if you're using them for real hard research, you need to be checking their work and doing that research yourself and checking the sources and making sure it's coming from reliable places, not Reddit.
Reddit. Yeah, can you believe it? Do you see how much of the summaries they draw from Reddit? Reddit is just opinions.
Yeah.
From people with no quality. I mean, there's nothing to say they've got any qualifications, any experience, any understanding, and it's drawing from Reddit. Yeah, and biases come through. And sometimes these biases can be quite subtle. And I'm an editor, so I can see these things. And I'm also highly critical of AI output, So I see it, but others may not. And be aware of AI's well-documented tendency for hallucination. An AI hallucination is when an AI model, such as a large language model like ChatGPT, confidently generates false, misleading, or fabricated, made-up information that's not supported by its training data. It actually makes shit up. So it presents these inaccuracies as facts, right? It creates plausible sounding content that is completely disconnected from reality, like literally. And this is really, really dangerous. And it's particularly bad if you use such hallucinatory material as the basis for non-fiction or historical fiction. It's a well-documented thing that AIs do. Yeah.
Crazy. So where can AI be useful for authors?
Well, it does work well for promotional copy, right? That's the stuff that authors find really difficult.
Yeah, it's a good marketing assistant.
Yeah. So, writing your book description for Amazon, like it does actually do a good job of that. It's helpful for brainstorming ideas, titles, again, brainstorming, right? Character names, summarizing long material. It's, helpful for that. Converting transcripts into articles.
Unless it leaves out key important information.
Obviously you have to check everything.
Yeah.
You can't just take it and use it.
Yeah.
You've got to go through it really, really carefully, right? It's good for summarising and structuring your ideas. So you can give it a whole sort of salad of ideas that you're running through your head. And
brain dump at it.
You can. That's right. And then you can say, can you summarise this, put it into dot points? And then you look at it and go, oh, that's what I was thinking about. Right? It's really useful for that. If you're writing non-fiction, like a technical report writing, right? Or any time you need to simply and efficiently convey information, like a summary paragraph, it's really useful for that. So if you're writing a chapter about something and you go, oh, they need to know what this is, just something that you're talking about later on, right? This is how I've used it. It's like, I just need a quick summary of what Vajrayana Buddhism is, for instance. I'll just get that summary from an AI, and it just saves me a hell of a lot of time trying to work out how am I going to say all of that in 2 sentences, right? So
you give it the information first.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, you give it the full
chapter.
Yeah, or you send it to an article and say I want 2 sentences to summarise that. But if you want your writing to have some insight in it, it needs additional writing and editing by the author. Right? A purely AI written book is likely to be a bit boring, honestly. For example, I read a book recently which was like, it was too clean, too tight, too slick, and I went, I really suspected it was the actual words were written by an AI. So when you're using it for the non-creative parts of writing, right, it functions as a tool rather than a replacement for the author. But what's really important is that the author evaluates what it gets from the AI and makes decisions. Yeah.
So what about editing?
I have to stress here that a human editor is really important, right? And it's not just because I am a human editor. I've really looked into this. I've accepted that it was possible that my job was going out the door. And for some authors, that's how they'll think. But for a thinking author who really wants to write depth, right, you cannot get rid of the human author, because AI will literally edit the humanity out of your book in subtle ways that you may not notice, right? Because AI it simply cannot experience emotion or empathy or a human perspective. It only knows about human perspective from what it's read, right? Human authors write for human readers, right? So AI edits in terms of algorithms that may not relate to the actual manuscript at all. Right? And on a very practical note, they don't provide a track change document, right, which shows what they've done, like a human editor does, right?
That would make it very difficult to check their work as an editor.
It's impossible, right?
Yeah, you'd have no idea what they did.
No, you'd have to have your original one there and the edited one there and go, what have they changed,
Yeah, a human editor can respond to the emotional effect of the words in a way that an AI cannot. So an AI is just going to look at it very logically through its algorithms and stuff, whereas a human editor is going to go, well, we need to keep this in, even if it's maybe not grammatically amazing, because of the emotional effect it has.
Exactly.
And then working on making that more strong, maybe, or whatever.
Yeah. And a human can see the subtleties in the themes and author intent that the AI misses, right? And for instance, I mean, an AI manuscript appraisal can be helpful, but not as a replacement for the human editor. And I've tried these things. They really don't get the nuance, right? They also don't understand emotional impact and subtle emotional pacing, like action pacing, okay, right? But if you do what an AI tells you to do with your manuscript, you'll literally take out the human element. I mean, you really will. You may come up with something that's too clean, too tight, and too slick.
Yeah.
You know? It's devoid of the messiness of real human experience and real emotional content. So AI tends to see any reflective passages as unnecessary. I mean, it's bizarre that I discovered this, because it's sort of like what you would imagine, but it actually is like that, because I tried getting AI assessments for 3 different books, right, to test this. I got the same kinds of comments on all of these 3, even though they're very different books. Wherever there was a reflective passage, it was too much, right? And I go through and I look at the bit where it says it's too much, and I go, that's not too much. That's really engaging, right? That's the real guts, the real nitty gritty of what this author's going through. And the AI is saying, it's too much, it's too long.
Yeah.
Cut it back.
Yeah.
Right, so you cut that out, great. You think you've done the right thing. Oh, you know,
there's no emotional impact
you have
anymore
taken
in
out the meat. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's really a formulaic approach, right? And by design, it will always be so.
That's the way they're built.
Never going to relate to your book, your intention, the way a human editor will. Yeah. So.
Speaking of human editors, if you want a human to appraise your manuscript,
hi,
she's here.
I am very human. I am human. I am.
That's not powered. Restart.
I really looked into this in detail. What?
I can tell. I've sat here nodding for the last 20 minutes.
Sorry. Passion project. Okay, so they can't tell the difference between showing and telling.
What?
They have no idea what active prose is. They have not read my book. I asked for the AI to pick up instances of showing rather than telling in these manuscript appraisals, right? And I told it to flag passages. The passages it flagged were not expositional at all. They were reflective passages. So it sees human reflection and contemplation as telling, and is unnecessary. Right? So there you go. It's true.
Your emotions are unnecessary.
It's exactly true.
Remove them.
Yeah, and this is how it flattens
Beep, bop,
work.
boop.
This is how it takes out the subtleties and the human cadence, even the sloppiness and subtle pacing that indicates humanity. You know, a book can be too tight.
Well, with all that, why would you use AI? What's the point?
Well, it saves time. That's really the only reason to use AI.
Our culture is obsessed with productivity.
Yeah, exactly.
But writing is not really about efficiency and productivity. It's about thinking and creativity and self-expression and using your brain.
Yeah.
Like using an AI to write everything for you would be like sending a robot to the gym to do your exercise.
Totally. Yeah.
You lose the mental and creative development that writing brings you, not to mention the pure creative joy of creation.
Yeah. I mean, I do believe that overuse of AI literally turns your brain to mush. And I think they will discover that more and more as time goes on, because you're just not working your brain in the same way. Okay.
So the balanced view on AI usage is that it isn't really a question of being totally for or totally against it. It's about understanding the tool, how it works, what it does well, what it does badly, and only using it thoughtfully if you really feel it will be helpful for you. Recognizing and avoiding the areas where it's harmful, and really protecting the human elements of writing and protecting your own joy in the creativity of writing, because that's why everyone does this, right?
And all those cognitive benefits. Of writing, The more meaningful the writing you want to create, the more important the human voice becomes.
So in summary, What's your advice on AI usage for authors?
Well, just summing up what we've said, right? Basically, beginner writers and anyone who hasn't published a book should just avoid using it at all. They really should, because they need to develop their writing skills.
Learn your stuff first.
Yeah, and their voice. I think established writers, or those with a good graft of the craft, just need to make sure they only use it as a tool. They need to make sure that they retain ownership of the work and experiment with a very critical eye. They need to be able, in the end, to say, I wrote it, without any hesitation. I advise novel and memoir writers to always write their own words. Using the AI's words takes away the insights that come to the human brain while you're in the process of writing. So you miss all of that stuff that just comes to you as you write, and that's really important. Yeah.
In one of our other videos, we talked about the role of stories in the creation of culture. And AI usage in writing, how does that affect that?
That's a really good question, and maybe that's the key point, because literature both reflects and creates culture. And the question is, do you want humans to create culture or machines?
They'll have their own one. AI books written for AI by AI. For you humans in the comments sections, where do you personally draw the line with AI writing? Would you use it for brainstorming, for editing, for drafting?
Or not at all.
Or not at all. Let us know in the comments. We know this is a hot topic right now.
Yes, and I look at AI usage in writing in more detail in one of the chapters in my book, Novel Writing Mastery. Get it now. And no, I did not use AI to write this book.
That one's all pure info from
You can tell
the dome.
it's really sloppy.
Don't say that. No, you can tell that because there's a lot of human relatability in it to the writing process.
Yeah, and AI would never have thought of talking about the emotional challenges of writing.
Yeah, that's
it just
true.
would never
put
have
that bit
come
in
up
there.
with it.
Yeah.
Unless it reads my book, in which case it's now programmed to think that way. No. Yeah.
Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please hit subscribe. We post lots of educational, informative videos on writing, editing, publishing, all of that good stuff. And you can get in touch with us for any book publishing needs or production that you may have. This is going forever.
Or editing, etc., etc., etc. We hope to hear from you soon.